Today we're opening the hood on the engine of language acquisition. We're looking specifically at the methodology used in The English Upgrade, that series hosted by Mary Walker and Ryan Carter. We're focusing on a pretty critical pivot point in their curriculum, the transition from, the simple verb usage of Episode 2 to the leveling up strategy in Episode 3, which relies on longer sentences, connectors, and WH questions.
It's a fascinating case study because it really forces us to ask what we actually mean when we say someone is fluent. It touches on the friction between accuracy and authenticity.
Exactly. And that brings us to the core question we're grappling with today. Does the additive method of language learning, where you build sentences through this kind of mechanical expansion and rigid full sentence structures, does that genuinely build fluency, or does it create an artificial, sort of stilted form of communication that prioritizes length over naturalism?
I'm arguing that the structured building block approach is the necessary scaffold. You can't improvise jazz until you know your scales.
And I'm going to take the opposing view. I'm arguing that the emphasis on making longer sentences and the explicit instruction to speak in full sentences creates a false metric for proficiency. It ignores the natural, fragmentary rhythm of authentic conversation and, it risks turning learners into grammatically correct robots who can't actually connect with humans. All right, let's get way into it. My position is rooted in, it's really about cognitive load theory. When you look at the progression that Mary Walker lays out, moving from I like coffee to I like coffee in the morning, we're seeing a masterclass in managing the learner's brain power. The methodology isn't just about grammar, it's about psychological safety. The English Upgrade explicitly teaches students to compartmentalize information. You start with the core, subject, verb, object, and then you attach a specific detail, like time or place.
So you view it as a kind of modular system then?
Precisely. It's modular. Walker and Carter provide a formula, a literal algorithm, really, that allows a learner to sustain speech without panicking. When they introduce the word "and" to connect ideas, they aren't just making sentences longer for the sake of length. They're giving the learner the tools to hold the floor in a conversation. In the early stages, fluency isn't about style. It's about structural competence. It's about knowing that if you put the blocks in the right order, you will be understood.
I understand the utility of the blocks. I do, but I fundamentally disagree with the blueprint. My position is that, look, while these lessons are functional, sure, the speaking confidence tip offered by the hosts, it reveals a deep misunderstanding of how social language actually works. When Ryan Carter asserts that longer sentences help you sound more fluent, he's conflating verbosity with proficiency.
How so?
Because real-world fluency is defined by economy. It's defined by what you don't say. It involves ellipsis, contraction, speed. If you teach a student that the goal is to say, I eat eggs and I drink coffee, you are teaching them a cadence that exists, nowhere outside of a textbook. It creates a barrier to social integration because it immediately marks the speaker as other. Authenticity is messy, it's efficient, and this method, it tries to sanitize it by forcing volume.
I think you're judging a construction site by the standards of a finished building. Let's look at the first core area of our disagreement, the additive method and mechanical complexity. In the source material, Mary Walker explicitly states, the secret is simple. Start with a short sentence, then add details. She uses the example, she drinks water every day, or we study English at home.
Right, and that sounds harmless enough.
It's more than harmless, it's empowering. This is a modular approach. The learner understands that every day and at home are interchangeable blocks. Linguists might call these adjuncts that can be slotted into a foundational sentence structure. By adhering to the formula of subject plus verb plus object plus detail, the learner can mechanically construct complex thoughts without fear of error. It effectively gamifies sentence structure. You score points by adding a block.
But that gamification leads to what I call Frankenstein sentences. You're just stitching parts together that don't quite fit the soul of the language. Look at the example they built together in the episode. I wake up early and I go to work. Grammatically, unimpeachable. Stylistically, it's leaden.
Leaden? That seems a bit harsh for a beginner sentence.
It's the connector and. In the source, Mary says, and helps us connect two ideas. But look at the application. I eat eggs and I drink coffee. A native speaker, or even a truly fluent non-native speaker, would rarely glue two distinct subject-verb clusters together so starkly with and, unless there was a specific, narrative reason to emphasize both actions separately. Usually we compress, we use reduction, we say I have eggs and coffee. The English upgrade method treats language like math. 1 + 1 = 2. But language is art, it's impressionistic.
For the novice learner, language is math. That is the critical distinction you're missing. You're judging the output of a beginner by the aesthetic standards of a master poet. The secret Mary Walker shares is a survival mechanism. If a learner tries to be impressionistic with their grammar before they understand the rigid placement of the verb to drink or to go, they will fall into incoherence.
But are we teaching them to survive, or are we teaching them bad habits they'll have to unlearn later?
We are teaching them the rules so they can eventually break them. The repetition of I in I wake up early and I go to work reinforces subject-verb agreement. It might sound repetitive to your ear, but to the learner's brain, it is cementing the rule that I goes with go, not goes. It prevents the paralysis of trying to be poetic before one can be functional.
Functional, perhaps, but at the cost of social fluidity. And that brings us to our second point of contention, the WH interrogation versus actual conversation. The source material spends a significant amount of time on the systematic introduction of what, where, when, why, who, how.
Which is essential.
Essential to know, yes. But look at the application. Ryan Carter asks, "Where do you work?" And Mary answers, "I work at a hospital." On the surface, this is helpful, but it sets up a dynamic of interrogation, not connection.
I disagree. It's not interrogation, it's a social script. By teaching the learner to identify where and immediately link it to a place, and when to a time, the material provides a clear algorithm for interaction. Where do you work? I work at a hospital. This reduces social anxiety because the learner knows exactly what slot the question is aiming for. They don't have to parse intent, they just have to match the keyword.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that it reduces anxiety long term. I think it increases cognitive drag. Let's look at the dialogue in the real-life conversation segment. Ryan asks, "Where do you usually study?" And Mary answers, "I usually study at home." That is the part that drives me up the wall.
Why? It's a complete, accurate sentence.
I usually study at home. Who talks like that? If you ask a native speaker, "Where do you usually study?" they will simply say, "At home," maybe mostly at home. The source material forces the learner to mirror the question structure in their answer. It trains them to be repetitive rather than responsive. They're acting like a mirror, reflecting the syntax back at the speaker, rather than engaging in a dynamic exchange. It breaks the Gricean maxim of quantity: don't give more information than is required.
You are applying conversational theory to a drilling exercise that mirroring is a pedagogical necessity. You're ignoring the reinforcement aspect. The goal of that exchange in the English upgrade isn't just to convey the information at home. The goal is to practice the verb structure study.
But they frame it as real-life conversation. That's the label on the segment.
It is a simulation of real life designed for practice. If Mary simply said, "at home," the listener would learn the preposition but fail to practice the verb conjugation. I defend this repetition as a drill. It is active recall. In a classroom or podcast learning environment, efficiency of information transfer is secondary to the frequency of usage. They need to say, "I usually study 100 times" before it becomes second nature. Only then can they drop it and just say, "at home."
That assumes they will drop it. My fear, and this is something I see in many advanced learners who learned via this structural method, is fossilization. They never shed that exoskeleton. They continue to speak in full, mirrored sentences forever because they were told it was the correct way to speak. They sound like polite interrogation subjects rather than conversational partners.
That is a risk, I admit, but it's a manageable one compared to the risk of incomprehensibility.
I think the risk is actually amplified by the third issue, And this is the hill I am willing to die on today. It's the full sentence mandate. This is where the ideology of the English upgrade becomes most explicit. In the Speaking Confidence tip, Mary Walker says, this lesson will help you sound more natural and more confident. Then Ryan explicitly commands, don't be afraid to speak in full sentences. And he adds, even if the sentence is simple, longer sentences help you sound more fluent. I argue this is fundamentally bad advice for leveling up.
I strongly disagree. That tip is the cornerstone of the entire methodology. Why do you find it so objectionable?
Because it creates a false equivalency. It equates length with quality. Ryan is telling the learner that I eat eggs and bread is inherently superior to eggs and bread. But in many contexts, the longer version sounds less confident. It sounds like you're reading from a phrase book. Fluency often looks like contraction, ellipsis, and shorthand. Confidence is knowing you don't need to use the full sentence to be understood. Confidence is efficiency.
But short, fragmentary speech allows beginners to hide. That is the crucial point you're glossing over. If we allow a beginner to just say, eggs, we don't know if they know the verb is eat, or have, or make. We don't know if they understand the subject. Forcing a full sentence, in the morning, I drink coffee and check my email, as used in the real-life conversation segment, forces the learner to commit to the language. They have to put their cards on the table. They have to show they can handle the subject, the verb, the object, and the connector.
That real-life conversation segment is actually perfect evidence for my point. Listen to the rhythm of it. Ryan, in the morning, I drink coffee and check my email. What about you? Mary, I wake up early and I study English. It is staccato. It lacks flow. It's a stylized ideal of conversation, not a recording of reality.
It creates a cadence.
It creates a ping-pong match. By presenting this as real life, they are setting up an expectation that conversations are these neat, back-and-forth tennis matches of full sentences. Real life is messier. It's interruptions, it's half-thoughts, it's and sure. By prioritizing longer sentences, the source material creates a rigid mental model that will shatter the first time the learner enters a noisy bar or a fast-paced office.
But you cannot teach messy to a beginner. That is the fundamental flaw in your argument. You want to teach the exception before the rule. The English upgrade approach acts as a vital skeleton. The exchange, in the morning, I drink coffee and check my email. It shows how full sentences create a rhythm that establishes authority. When a learner can produce that entire string of sounds without stumbling, they feel the language differently than if they just muttered, coffee mostly. That feeling of producing a long, coherent string is what Ryan means by confidence. It's the confidence of capacity.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered that the confidence of capacity might be a false confidence? If I feel confident because I can recite, I wake up early and I go to work, but then I freeze when someone asks me, coffee? Because I'm waiting for the full sentence, do you want coffee? Then the method has failed me. The method creates a dependency on structure. I believe that true upgrading, to use the show's own terminology, should involve breaking the structure down, not just building it up.
Let's look deeper at the specific vocabulary of the English upgrade to see how this plays out. They use high-frequency verbs: eat, drink, go, like, want. In episode 2, they focus heavily on yes-no questions. Do you like coffee? Yes, I do. This is binary. It's clear. When they move to episode 3 and the WH questions, they're expanding the cognitive map. What do you eat for breakfast? I eat eggs and bread. You call this robotic. I call it providing a safe harbor. If a student is lost in a conversation, they can revert to these structures. They're the baseline.
I agree they're a baseline, but the podcast frames them as the destination. That's my issue. Ryan says this makes your English sound more natural. That is the specific claim I take issue with. I wake up early and I go to work is intelligible, but it is not natural in the sense of native-like behavior. It's natural only within the artificial ecosystem of the classroom. If the podcast claimed this makes your English more precise, I would agree, but they claim naturalism, and that is a promise they are not fulfilling with this additive Lego brick method.
I think you're splitting hairs on the definition of natural.
For a learner who yesterday could only say coffee, saying I like coffee in the morning feels incredibly natural because it expresses a complete human thought. It connects the internal desire with the external reality. The English upgrade provides the bridge between the two. When Mary Walker says, small steps every day will give you big results, she's talking about this accumulation of structure. You can't accumulate naturalism through osmosis alone. You have to build it brick by brick. The AND connector, the time-place additions, these are the training wheels necessary for eventual speed.
Training wheels are great, provided you eventually take them off. My concern with the material is that it creates a culture where the training wheels are gold-plated and celebrated as the bike itself. When Ryan says, practice using and WH questions every day, he's prescribing a regimen of elaboration. I would argue that a speaking confidence tip should occasionally be, it's okay to be brief, or listen to how people shorten things. By only pushing for length, longer sentences help you sound more fluent. They are creating a mindset where the learner feels inadequate if they aren't producing paragraphs of speech.
But we must look at the target audience. These are learners moving from episode 2 to episode 3. They are at the beginning of their journey. At this stage, silence is the enemy. Briefness is often indistinguishable from ignorance. If a student answers at home, they might be fluent, or they might not know how to form a sentence. If they answer, I usually study at home, they prove their competence. The curriculum is designed to prove competence, both to the teacher and to the learner themselves.
Proving competence is different from communicating effectively. But I acknowledge your point about the developmental stage. Early on, volume of output, literally the number of words produced, is a proxy for effort and retention.
Exactly. And let's not overlook the psychological benefit of the real-life conversation script. Even if you find it stylized, think about the student listening to it. Hi, Ryan. What do you do in the morning? In the morning, I drink coffee and check my email. It creates a predictable cadence. It creates a world where English is manageable, where questions have direct answers, and where the rules apply consistently. That predictability is comforting. It lowers the affective filter, that psychological wall that goes up when we're anxious, allowing the student to take risks.
It lowers the affective filter by lowering the reality setting. It presents a world where English is tidy. And we know English is not tidy. However, I will concede that the English upgrade does an excellent job of isolating the variable. By keeping the vocabulary simple, eggs, bread, coffee, work, hospital, they allow the student to focus entirely on the syntax. They aren't struggling with the word for croissant. They're focusing on where in the morning goes in the sentence.
That is a crucial observation. The English upgrade is disciplined. It doesn't distract with fancy vocabulary, it focuses on the machinery. I like coffee becomes I like coffee in the morning. It's a precise, surgical addition.
It is precise, and perhaps that is where our fundamental difference lies. You value the precision of the construct, I value the adaptability of the speaker.
We're nearing the end of our time, so let's attempt to synthesize these views. My position remains that the English upgrade approach acts as a vital skeleton. One cannot break the rules, speak in fragments, use ellipsis until one masters the rules. The explicit instruction to use full sentences and connectors like and acts as the training wheels. It is the necessary phase of mechanical competence that must precede organic fluency. The learner needs to know that I eat eggs and I drink coffee is the correct underlying structure before they can confidently shorten it to eggs and coffee.
And I maintain that while those structures are useful, the philosophy that longer is better is fundamentally flawed. True upgrading implies moving toward naturalism, which often means shedding the rigid skins of the classroom. The learner should be wary of the confidence tip that equates sentence length with fluency. If you follow the English upgrade blindly, you risk building a linguistic fortress, impressive, strong, but totally impenetrable to casual, friendly conversation. You sound like a textbook, not a person.
But a fortress is a safe place to live while you're growing.
Perhaps. But eventually, you have to go outside and play in the garden. And gardens are messy.
A beautiful metaphor to end on. We agree that the material provides a clear window into the mechanics of language building, even if we disagree on the aesthetic outcome.
Indeed. It's a question of whether you're building a machine or growing an organism.
We leave the listener to decide which approach resonates with their own journey. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.